Did you know there are only 4 excuses in the world? That's right, there's only 4. You've maybe been a leader long enough to think you've heard thousands of different variations of excuses, but there are only 4. And once you know this, you can run a very simple play to help turn every excuse into a really productive conversation. Welcome to Leadership Unplugged, where we show you what real leadership sounds like. Now, I didn't set out to find 4 excuses. I actually kind of stumbled into them. See, I led a sales team for about a decade, and during that time, I worked with a team of verbal ninjas, and they would regularly run over me with their excuses. And so I thought I'd heard 1,000 as well. But when I left that career and I became a leadership coach, I started hearing from my clients the excuses their people were making, and I caught on to this truth. I thought it was very odd that my sales team from the Pacific Northwest would make the same excuses as lawyers in the Northeast and healthcare workers in the South and engineers in California and manufacturers in Canada. I thought it was very odd that they were all saying the same exact words. And so I sat down, compared some notes, and I realized, wow, they all say one of these 4 things when they make an excuse. And that allowed me to come up with a very simple play to help us navigate it. And it helped me a lot to take a second to think about what an excuse really is. An excuse is a moment when a person is feeling uncomfortable in a conversation and they'll do whatever they can to get out of it. And so what they do is they come up with some sort of bait, some sort of thing they lob your way that if they bait you with that, if they hook you with that, they will successfully hijack the conversation, and before you know it, you'll be having the conversation they want you to have instead of the one you maybe started out having. You've all lived through this moment, this frustration where mid-excuse you can't even remember why you started the conversation. But an excuse is that moment of pressure, that crucible that person's really trying to get out of. And if we can understand that, then we can come up with a little play to help them get out of the conversation our way instead of their way. And when we understand this pressure and what they're trying to do, we can help them get where they're trying to go with a very simple 4-step play. The first step is to identify which excuse you're dealing with. Again, there's only 4 of them, so it's not like you have to think about 40 of them, but you figure out which excuse you're dealing with because that's gonna change the nature of the bait. The second step is to avoid the bait. Again, the bait is this big juicy piece of probably partially truthful information that they want to hook you with. If it was pure BS, it'd be easy to call BS, but it's not. There's some truth in it. And that's what makes it difficult. But if you can avoid that bait, then you can address that individual excuse directly and redirect it into something far more productive. That little 4-step play saves leaders that I work with thousands of hours in their lives and tears and frustration and all the headache and heartache you deal with because they know how to run it effectively. Hey, if you like this video and you want more Leadership Unplugged, take a second, subscribe, and look out for new episodes every week. So what are these 4 excuses? Well, the first, shouldn't be a surprise, is it's not my fault. Now this comes in a few variations. They could blame somebody else. Oh, Bob didn't get me that email, or the client didn't do what they were supposed to. Or maybe they say I didn't have time, or I forgot. Those are versions of it's not my fault. The second type of excuse is I didn't know. And I didn't know is the one that typically frustrates me the most because that's the one where you're like, what do you mean you didn't know? We were in the same meeting together, or you read the email, or you signed a document saying you knew you should do that, right? We've got a lot of reasons why people should know things. It's very frustrating. The third type of excuse is I'm on it now. This one doesn't feel like an excuse. The person's telling you they're gonna go do the thing you wanted them to do, but they're just trying to get out of the conversation without actually having it with you. And the fourth type of excuse is that's not normal. This is when a person tries to convince you that the situation is so irrepresentative of the norm that why would we even talk about it? In fact, we're wasting our time talking about it, boss. Those are the 4 types of excuses. In each one of those excuses, we have to run this 4-step play. Identify which one we're dealing with so we can avoid the bait, address the excuse directly, and redirect it into something more productive. Let me give you a demo. If somebody comes at you with an it's not my fault, the address back is, well, it might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility, so what are you going to go and do about it? That's the vague way to say it. So somebody said, it's not my fault, Bob didn't get me the email. Hey, listen, I understand. There's times where somebody you work with is not going to follow through, but it is still your responsibility to make sure you get that information. What do you need to do in order to go and get that from Bob? You'll notice I seamlessly rolled into an open-ended question. That's the redirect. Step 1, I didn't fight with them over whether it was their fault or not. Step 2, I just let them know a hard truth, which is that there's a lot of stuff in life that's not your fault, but still your responsibility. But without leaving any airtime, I redirected it into something more productive And that's what we do with the redirect. It's an open-ended question. It usually begins with the words who, what, when, where, or how, and you're offering them this nice way out of this pressure crucible. If they just answer this question, they can go about their business. That's how we handle it's not my fault. Let's talk about I didn't know. I didn't know it wasn't my responsibility. I didn't know I was supposed to do that. You'll never win a debate trying to prove what's in the other person's brain, so you'll never want to fight with them on this. Avoid that. The address for I didn't know is to simply, what do you need him to do? I didn't know I was supposed to do that. Okay, now that you do know, when can you take care of that? Would be a reasonable way to do it. Or maybe you want to draw their attention not just to the thing that they didn't know, but actually to the higher level problem, which is there's stuff they're not knowing. So that might sound like, hey, now that you realize you're missing stuff in the emails I'm sending you, or now that you realized you haven't reviewed some of your training materials for a while, when can you block out time to go and take care of that? I'm redirecting them to an action to let them out of the conversation, but steer them towards something productive. The third excuse is I'm on it now. Again, this doesn't feel like an excuse. The person's telling you exactly what you want to hear. I'll take care of it, boss. And look, we all forget stuff. So there's going to be somebody you work with where like they just forgot and they're reliable. So that's not an excuse for them. Stuff happens. But the person you hear it from repeatedly, that's an excuse. And when somebody says, I'm on it now, that's awesome. That's exactly what I want to hear. But I don't have a lot of confidence that they're going to go do the thing, or that they're going to do it well, because I keep having to remind them to do stuff. So I'm going to ask them an open-ended question. They say, hey, I'm on it now. Don't worry about it, boss. Hey, great. Hey, how much time do you think that's going to take? Or when does that fit into your calendar? Or when would I expect to see that from you? Or what exactly do you need to do in order to get it done this time? One or two good open-ended questions to get them out of the conversation, but to give you more confidence that they're actually going to go do it is what it takes to navigate the I'm on it now. And the fourth excuse is that's not normal. Person says to you, oh, that doesn't happen that often, boss, or hey, that wasn't that big of a deal, or what do you mean normal? There's no such, everything's unique here. All three of those are variations of it, and we have to address them each individually. The thing to debate, or excuse me, the things to avoid is debating whether it's normal or not. That doesn't matter. And what we want to do is address it directly in a way that's like, actually it's happening more frequently than you think, or actually this is a really big deal, or actually, there's no such thing as normal here. Some of you work in industries where everything's custom, right? There's no such thing as normal here. So I would say, hey, look, actually, it's happening more frequently than you thought. That report you didn't turn in last week, it's happened for the last 3 weeks. What do you need to do in order to make sure you get it done this week? How much time do you need to block out every week in order to make sure it's prioritized? A simple, open-ended redirect to get them to answer a question that implies an action by them, commits them to an action, but gets you out of the conversation with a lot more confidence. That's how we handle all 4 of these excuses. Now, once you learn how to handle all 4 of these excuses, they become a lot less scary. You'll notice I didn't say they disappear. That's not the case. They're gonna happen. You work with humans, but you don't have to worry about them anymore. I know you've probably avoided conversations because you knew an excuse was coming from an individual. You don't have to do that anymore. And there's a side benefit here. Once your people see you start handling their excuses, they make a lot less excuses. Again, I'm not telling you they'll go away forever, but they'll make less excuses, or they'll make a different one, but there's only 4, so they can only go so far down that well. What you're doing is you're conditioning your people that their excuses won't fly here, but you're doing it in such a positive way that it's not tension, it's not conflict, you're just consistently redirecting them into something far more productive. You can build a culture where you don't have to deal with excuses very often when you get really good at this. And if you had done this a lot, you'd probably already be really good at it, but you probably haven't. That's exactly what we do in our academy. With the Language of Leadership Academy, we help people practice these most difficult conversations so that when the moment comes in real life, you've actually got the skill because you've handled it a number of times. Now, what I know is that the person who makes the excuses to you the most, you know their name. You've probably thought of them through this video, right? So like, take a second, you know that person, and you probably know which excuse they make the most, right? So here's my challenge to you. Take a second. Think of that person, think of which excuse it is they make. Go back to that part of the video. Capture what you're supposed to say, write it down on a piece of paper. And the next time you know you've got to go talk to that individual, review that little note or grab my ebook so you have the answers for it. But that way you're prepared to go handle that most difficult conversation. All right, that's it. There's only 4 excuses. Learning our simple play is how you prevent them from occurring in the first place and reduce your anxiety and dread about having to deal with them. As I challenge you, go handle somebody's excuse today. And if you want more Leadership Unplugged, more hard-hitting truths about what leadership really sounds like, make sure and subscribe. I'll see you next week.